I found a strange black cube at a flea market, Part 2. Chapter 11, Iris, the one who warned me too late. I met her online, of course. Not on a normal forum. Not Reddit, not Facebook, nothing indexed by Google. It was a thread that didn't exist until I searched for something very specific, a combination of words I'd never typed together before. Cube whispering reflection blood. And there it was. A buried page on a site with no title. No header. No ads. Just a plain, black screen with white text that read: "If the cube has turned, and you're still alive, meet me. I don't have long." Underneath was a single location pin. Public Library. Midtown. Second floor. Today. I hesitated. The smart part of me, what was left of it, said it was a trap. A hallucination. A lure sent by whatever the cube had let in. But I was past logic. And I had questions only someone like her could answer. She looked like a scarecrow in a hoodie. That's what I thought when I first saw her, sitting by the windows, thin as wire and twice as frayed. Her face was hollow. Skin dry and cracked like old paper. Black sunglasses on. A scarf even though it was June. She didn't turn when I approached. Just said, softly, "You brought it, didn't you?" I froze. She held out one hand, not to take anything, just to feel the air. Her fingers were calloused, stiff. Her arms were covered in carvings, lines and circles and runes that matched the ones on the cube. Burned in. Scarred. Self-inflicted, maybe. Or done to her. "I didn't bring it," I said. "You never bring it," she whispered. "It follows." She pulled off her sunglasses. Her eyes were gone. Not gouged. Not empty sockets. Just smooth skin. Like they were never there. I must have flinched, because she smiled. "This is what happens when you try to look inside the fourth side." The fourth side. I didn't understand at first. She nodded toward the floor. "The cube has 6 faces. But only 3 turn. You already turned the first." I didn't ask how she knew. I just sat across from her, unable to blink. "You're marked," she said. "It doesn't choose the good ones. It chooses the broken. The already cracked. People whose minds were split long before the cube found them. That's how it gets in." "I didn't ask for this," I said, barely above a whisper. She leaned in. "It doesn't care what you asked for. The first turn stains your reflection. The second bends your time. The third breaks your home. And the fourth?" I asked, instantly regretting it. She didn't speak. Just lifted her hand and turned it over slowly, revealing the underside of her wrist, where a fresh carving had opened into a symbol I hadn't seen before. Not on the cube. Not in the book. Something new. Something alive. Her skin pulsed beneath it. Just slightly. She whispered, "The fourth is not a turn." She held up 4 fingers, then slowly lowered one. "It's a return. And nobody survives it." She stood up before I could respond. "You have 2 more turns. Maybe less." Then she paused, hand on the railing, and added softly, "If you start seeing yourself where you shouldn't, it's already too late." And then she walked out. I never got her full name. I never saw her again. But that night, when I looked in the mirror before bed, there were 2 of me. One brushing his teeth. And one smiling behind him. Chapter 12, The Second Turning and the Screaming Sky. I wasn't going to turn it again. I told myself that every day. But the truth is, by then, I wasn't making choices. I was just stalling the inevitable. The cube had become the center of the apartment. Not just in space, in gravity. Everything pulled toward it. My thoughts, my dreams, the light itself. I started noticing time slipping. I'd look at the clock and see 3:33, blink, and it would be 7:19, and the sun would be rising backwards. My phone battery drained even when it was off. My fridge stopped working. My reflection in the microwave flickered in place even when I moved. The cube was waiting. But not passively. I found it one morning sitting in the windowsill again, the same one it had never been placed on since the first time. It was humming louder now. The sound vibrated the glass. The curtains rippled even though the window was shut. It felt ready. And I was tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of running from whatever this was. So I did it. I picked it up. I felt the grooves under my fingertips. Deeper now. Like veins beneath skin. I twisted it. Click. And the world screamed. It wasn't a noise. Not at first. It was pressure. A low, vibrating tension that rolled through the room and sank straight into the marrow of my bones. The cube dropped from my hands and hit the floor, but it didn't stop humming. It was roaring now. I stumbled to the window, drawn there like a moth to a flame. Outside, the sky was cracking. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. Literally. Veins of black tore through the air above the buildings, like someone was splitting the world open from the top down. Clouds froze in place, then peeled back, like a scab lifting to reveal something raw and alive underneath. And then I saw it. The hole. It wasn't just darkness. It was depthless. A wound in space. Wide as a football field and suspended directly above the city like it had always been there and no one had noticed until now. And it was moving. Not spinning. Not drifting. Breathing. The hole groaned. A long, wet, bone-shaking sound that vibrated the glass in my windows. I dropped to my knees. My head felt like it was filling with static and syrup. My eyes burned. My skin itched. But worse than all of that, I think it saw me. I don't mean I saw something inside the hole. I mean the hole itself looked at me. It didn't have an eye. It was an eye. A pupilless, endless, impossible gaze that pressed against every molecule of who I was and found all the rot. Every lie. Every secret. Every awful thing I'd buried. And it liked what it saw. I blacked out on the floor, twitching. When I woke up, the cube was back on the table. No blood. No scorch marks. No signs of what had happened. Except for the crack in my ceiling, a new one. It looked just like the one in the sky. And when I turned on the news, nothing. No mention of a hole. No sky anomaly. Not even a weather warning. It was like the world had already forgotten. But I hadn't. Because now, at the edges of my vision, I could see fractures in the air. And sometimes, when I blinked, I caught a glimpse of the hole again. Closer this time. And whispering. Chapter 13, The Dead Don't Stay Dead Here. The cube knew about her. Of course it did. But I wasn't ready for how it would use her. My sister, Leah, died 10 years ago. Car crash. Black ice. I was supposed to pick her up that night, but I didn't. I was drunk, playing cards with friends, pretending I was fine. She called me twice. I ignored both. She drove herself. She wrapped her car around a telephone pole 3 blocks from my apartment. I never told anyone about the voicemails. Never told Mom. I deleted them before anyone else could hear them. Hey Alex, are you coming? It's starting to snow. I'll wait a bit, okay? The guilt never left. It just settled. Like sediment at the bottom of a river. Still. Quiet. Always there. Until tonight. I was sitting in the kitchen. Lights off. Staring at the cube. Trying to understand the second turning, the hole in the sky, the thing behind my reflection. The room was still. Then I heard the front door open. Not crash. Not creak. Just open, like someone had a key. I froze. Then I heard her voice. Alex. I couldn't move. Not until I heard her bare feet pattering across the floor. The soft, sticky sound of skin on linoleum. Closer. Into the kitchen. Then she appeared in the doorway. And I stopped breathing. Because it was her. Leah. Same blue hoodie she always wore. Same chipped nail polish. Hair a little longer than I remembered, but her. She looked 20 again. Frozen in the age she'd died. She smiled. Hey, she said. What's for dinner? My mouth moved, but no sound came out. Tears started leaking down my cheeks. Unwilled. Just falling. My body didn't care what my brain believed. She crossed the kitchen and sat down at the table across from the cube. The light flickered. She didn't. Why are you crying? She asked. You're dead, I whispered. She laughed. No, I'm not. I was just gone for a while. But I'm back now. Isn't that what you wanted? I couldn't look away. Every part of me wanted to believe it. To forget the crash. The calls. The decade of pain. But then I looked closer. Her eyes. Hollow. Not visibly, not empty sockets or black pits. Just, wrong. Too still. Too flat. Like glass marbles painted to look human. She reached across the table and touched my hand. Cold. Too cold. And dry, like leather stretched over bone. I can stay, she said softly. We can fix this. We can go back. But you have to do it. Do what? Her smile widened. Turn it again. My stomach twisted. I looked down at the cube. It had rotated slightly, on its own. One edge raised, like it was halfway ready. You want me to finish the third turn? She nodded. Then we can be a family again. I pulled my hand back. Her face fell. Not in anger. Not sadness. Disappointment. Like a mask losing its shape. She stood slowly. The lights flickered again, and for half a second I saw her real shape, her outline collapsing in on itself, too many joints in the wrong places. Then she was gone. Not walked out. Not faded. Just, gone. Like she'd never been there. I sat at the table for hours, watching the cube. Waiting for it to move again. It didn't. But the next morning, when I woke up in bed, there was a voicemail on my phone. I hadn't had one since Jamie. The voice was Leah's. Why didn't you pick me up, Alex? Chapter 14, the walls started bleeding names. I woke up to the sound of dripping. Not rain. Not plumbing. Wet, steady, thick drops falling onto tile. I followed the sound to the hallway. And I stopped breathing. Because on the far wall, just above the light switch, there was a name scrawled in deep, wet red. Marcy L. The letters looked handwritten, shaky, jagged, uneven. They pulsed faintly, like each one had a heartbeat. A fresh streak of red ran down from the M trailing to the baseboard. Marcy had been gone for years. Drowned. And I had been there. I'd let her drown, then lied about it. Left her name behind like a story I could outrun. Now it was bleeding out of my walls. I tried wiping it off with a towel. The cloth came away clean, no blood on it. But when I looked again, the name was still there. And now it was joined by another. Leah V. My sister. By the time I reached the living room, there were dozens. Written across the walls. Scratched into the floorboards. Crawling up the windows from the inside. Jamie. Sophia M. My mom. Daniel S. Dr. Haller. Charlie, the neighbor's dog I never returned. My 5th grade teacher. My ex. People I'd hurt. People I'd used. People I'd pushed out of my life, and people I barely remembered until the cube made me. And each name came with a sound. A whispered echo from the past, arguments, slamming doors, sobbing, voicemails, phone rings I never picked up. Every failure I ever allowed. Every time I didn't say what I should have. The cube had been watching. Listening. Judging. The worst part. Some of the names I didn't even recognize. I grabbed a knife and scratched them out, one by one. Digging into the drywall until my hand bled, until I couldn't hold the blade steady. I gouged out letters. Screamed as I sliced through paint and plaster. For a moment, it worked. The names disappeared. The bleeding stopped. I collapsed to the floor, panting. Shaking. But then I looked back at the wall. And there they were again. Only now, the red was brighter. And one more name had appeared. At the very bottom. Centered perfectly on the front door. Alex V. My name. Written in thicker strokes. Heavier. Like it wasn't written on the wood, it was burned in. And beneath it, the symbol from the cube. I pressed my fingers to it. It was warm. That night, I tried to sleep on the bathroom floor, the only room with clean walls. The cube sat in the hall, humming low and steady, like a predator purring outside the den. And somewhere in the apartment, I heard my own voice whisper. Turn it again. Chapter 15, Iris died screaming my name. She shouldn't have come back. Iris warned me she wouldn't live long. The last time I saw her, the library, her eyeless stare, the carvings on her skin, she said the cube chose broken people. But she didn't say it finished with them. And she definitely didn't say it could wear them. The night she died, I got a voicemail. Just one word. Help. I knew her voice. I ran. Didn't think, didn't grab a coat. Just ran through the rain, the cube's hum in my head like a tuning fork vibrating in my teeth. She lived in a basement flat on the edge of town. I found the address in my notes, something I barely remembered writing down. The building smelled like mildew and dust. The hallway lights were flickering like everything else these days. When I reached her door, it was open. The air inside was wrong. Not cold. Not hot. Just hollow. Like the sound had been sucked out of the room. I stepped in. Iris. Nothing. The lights inside flickered. Then I saw her. Folded. That's the only word that fits. Folded in half, her back arched the wrong way, her feet near her ears, arms snapped backward like wings. Her face was still. Mouth slightly open. Eyes gone. Just skin there, like before. But it was the position that burned itself into me. No blood. No mess. Just wrongness. Like someone had crumpled her. I backed out of the room and called 911, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I didn't run. I didn't need to. Because I already knew what the cops were going to think. I'd been here. I'd left fingerprints. And the only person who could vouch for me was now folded like origami on the floor. They found the security footage 2 days later. And that's when things got worse. Because I watched the video. I watched it. The footage showed me, walking down the hallway, entering Iris's flat. No coat, no panic. Calm. Quiet. Inside, I approached her. She backed away, shaking her head, whispering something. I lunged. The camera flickered. Glitched. And then she was on the floor. Bent. Still. And I just stood there, breathing. Then turned and walked out. But I wasn't there. Not really. Because I have footage of my own. From my apartment. At the exact same time. I'm sitting on the floor. Holding the cube. Watching the wall bleed my name. I never left. I never touched her. So who did? The police called once. I didn't answer. Then they came to the door. I didn't open it. I watched from the peephole as they knocked. Waited. Then left. They never came back. Not even to seal the place off. Like they'd forgotten her. Like the cube had eaten more than her body, maybe her existence. But that night, the worst part wasn't the footage. It wasn't the blood. It was the moment, right before the camera cut out, when the thing wearing my face turned to the lens. And smiled. Not like a killer. Not like a man. But like something that had just figured out how to become me. Chapter 16, The Third Turning and the Collapse of Everything. I didn't want to do it. Not really. Even after Iris. Even after the blood. Even after watching something with my face break a woman in half. But the cube doesn't ask. It waits. It pressures. And sooner or later, it becomes you. That night, the apartment began to warp. It started with the corners. They got deeper. Not wider, deeper. Like someone had taken reality and tilted it a few degrees toward something else. Shadows grew long even without light. Doors closed slower than they opened. Every creak had a rhythm, like breathing. Or worse, counting. By 2 a.m., the cube was glowing. I mean glowing, pulsing in wet, steady waves, like it had veins just under the surface. The heat radiating off it filled the entire room. I could smell metal. I could smell ash. And the hum had changed. It was now a low, guttural chant. Not a voice, but many, layered beneath the surface. Whispering in tandem. 1, 2, 3. And then. Turn. So I did. I don't remember standing. I don't remember crossing the room. I only remember placing my fingers on the grooves, the third set, hidden until that night, and twisting. Click. The cube exhaled. The world broke. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean physically. My apartment folded. Walls slammed inward and twisted like paper in a child's hands. The windows sucked backward, stretching into vertical mouths that screamed without sound. The floor curled up like it was trying to escape itself. And then it tore. A seam opened beneath my feet, wide and black and bottomless. I fell. Not downward, inward. Into something far older than falling. I hit ground hard. But it wasn't ground. Not in the way we know it. Ash. Thick. Endless. The color of charred bone, shifting under my weight. The sky above was not a sky at all, but a smear of bruised red, throbbing, pulsing, alive. The desert from my dreams. Only now I knew it wasn't a dream. It was a place. And I was in it. I stood slowly, every breath burning in my chest. The air here was wrong, too heavy, too still, like it had already been breathed by something else. In the distance, towers. Bone towers. Twisting upward, covered in faces I couldn't recognize but somehow remembered. They watched me with eyeless sockets and open mouths, frozen mid-scream. But all of it paled when I turned and saw the door. Black. Smooth. Still. Except now, open. Not fully. Just enough. A gap, maybe 2 feet wide. And through that sliver, I saw movement. Something shifting just out of reach, not walking, not crawling. Beckoning. The symbols along the edges of the doorway pulsed faintly. Some I recognized from the cube. Others from the book. One of them matched the scar on my palm. And in that moment, I realized something that chilled me more than anything else had so far. The door wasn't just open because I turned the cube. The door had always been there. Waiting for me. I took one step toward it. The ash whispered under my feet. And behind me, something large breathed in, deeply, like tasting. That's when I realized. I wasn't alone in the desert. Chapter 17, The Hallway of Teeth. The door was open. It didn't creak. It didn't groan. It simply waited. A black slit in the ashen world, wide enough to let something through, or to let me in. I stared into it for what felt like hours. The inside wasn't dark. It was red. Pulsing, warm, alive, like the inside of a mouth held open just long enough for something to step inside. And then I did. Behind the door wasn't a room. It was a staircase. Not made of stone. Not wood. Bone. Each step a vertebra, carefully fused to the next, ribbed and brittle, and covered in teeth. Not decorative. Not random. Embedded. Rows of human teeth. Animal teeth. Baby teeth. Some gold-capped. Some sharp. Some still stained with blood and bits of pink, rotting gum. I gagged. The entire stairwell stank of calcium and rot, like old meat buried in drywall. And every step I took, whispered. Not with breath. With voice. Soft murmurs curling up from the bones beneath me. At first it was my name. Alex. Then my sister's voice. Why didn't you pick me up, Alex? Then Marcy's. You let me sink. You watched me. Then others. You lied. You took the money. You left him there. You said it was an accident. You never meant to stay. You didn't say goodbye. Each step I took, more secrets surfaced. Things I hadn't thought about in years. And then things I'd never known I knew. You were 6 when you saw the first death. You smiled at your grandfather's funeral. You wished your father would hit you, so you'd have something to blame. You almost pushed that man in front of the train. I dropped to my knees. Covered my ears. But the stairs didn't care. The whispers came through bone, through air, through my skin. This wasn't just a staircase. It was a confession. A descent through every version of myself I'd abandoned. Somewhere above me, the door slammed shut. The bone walls tightened. The hallway narrowed. I could barely stand upright now. I kept going. Because I had to. Because if I turned back, I knew what I'd see. Me. Not behind me. Above. Watching. Smiling. The final step ended in a small, circular room. A hollow made entirely of smooth, ivory plates. No exits. No air. But something was waiting for me there. On the far wall, opposite where I entered, was a mirror. But it wasn't mine. It didn't reflect what I was. It showed me what the cube thought I could become. Tall. Hollow-eyed. Skin pulled too tight. Mouth too wide. Smiling constantly. A creature shaped like me but emptied out, like the meat had been scraped away to make room for something else. It tilted its head as I approached. And whispered. Almost ready. Chapter 18, I saw every lie I ever lived. There was a door in the bone chamber. It hadn't been there before. No handle. No hinges. Just a vertical slit, barely wide enough to pass through, like skin stretched too thin over a wound. When I stepped through it, I didn't feel myself walk. I felt myself become. What followed wasn't a hallway. It was a series of rooms. But not rooms from this world. Rooms from my life, twisted into impossible dimensions, like someone had recreated my memories from second-hand sketches and bad dreams. Each door opened onto a place I remembered, but wrong. Room 1, the bathroom. Our family home. I was 13. My mother had locked the door behind her, the same day she swallowed all her pills. But this time, I was inside with her. Standing in the corner. Watching. She didn't notice me, not at first. She stared at the mirror, whispering to herself. Then she turned, slow and deliberate, and looked directly at me. You left the pills out, she said. I hadn't. Had I? She took a step forward. You were glad when I didn't wake up. I backed away. The walls pulsed. The mirror cracked. Her eyes were gone. Room 2, the school gym. Senior year. The fire had started in the supply closet. Back then, I told the principal I didn't know how it happened. I said I was at lunch. But in this room, I'm holding the lighter. My hand is covered in gasoline. And the screams are already starting outside. The door behind me is locked. I pound on it. But I can't leave until I watch it all burn. Room 3, Emily. She was the girl who loved poetry and broken things. She disappeared in college. No one ever found her body. In this version, she's waiting at the train station, barefoot, dress torn, her mouth sewn shut. I try to speak. She opens her palms, and in them are all the messages I never sent, apologies, confessions, cowardice. They are written in blood. She presses them to my chest. You didn't save me, she mouths. The train comes. But I'm the only one who boards it. Each room hurt. Not physically. Spiritually. Existentially. Each one was a crack, not in reality, but in me. They weren't false memories. They were truer than the real ones. Each one was a version where the mask slipped. Where the lie dropped. Where the thing beneath the surface, the thing I really am, stepped forward. At the end of the corridor was a mirror. Another one. Different from the first. This one didn't reflect me at all. It showed nothing. Just blackness. Until I stepped closer. Then something bloomed in the darkness, not an image, but a gesture. A smile. And a single whispered sentence. You've always belonged to us. I collapsed. The air disappeared. My knees hit bone. And when I looked up again, I was back in the ash desert. Alone. But changed. Because now I understood. The cube wasn't just showing me hell. It was showing me who I really am. And worse. I recognized him.
The story may end here, but the darkness never sleeps. Like this video to keep the shadows stirring. Share your whispers in the comments. Your voice shapes the next nightmare. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Gothic Hour Stories and Mysteries, where every tale lingers and every soul leaves a mark. The Gothic Hour awaits.